wasn't meant for this. We discarded that system, and we now have a new system that can do millions of people as you need them. But we had to get rid of a broken old system that didn't work. It worked only on a very limited basis. And we're very proud of what we've done. It's incredible what we've done. And this system will now serve for the future, for future problems. Hopefully you don't have a problem like this, but something will come up. We have now a great system. And it's almost fully in gear, but it's able to test millions of people. But we inherited a broken, old, frankly, a terrible system. We fixed it, and we've done a great job. And we haven't been given the credit that we deserve, that I can tell you. But the one that really deserves the credit are the American people.
All right. Let's start off by saying Barak Atah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachah Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one pretty much is 70 AD all over again. And pretty much those of you brothers that have been studying, that have been watching the videos and teaching, you have a working knowledge of history and things that took place, certain events that took place in history. And one of the greatest events that took place to our nation was the sieging of Jerusalem and the taking down of Jerusalem, beginning around 64 AD and ending, it was either 66, I believe, 66 AD, and it ended 70 AD, but there were still strongholds till about 73, 74 AD. But the main date and the main takedown was 70 AD, which is when they sacked Jerusalem and destroyed the temple. And this is when the Roman Empire, the military, surrounded Jerusalem in a siege. And pretty much we're seeing the same thing playing out today, as they're pushing this coronavirus situation on the world. Now you have some people that are saying it's a hoax, you have some people that are saying it's real. Regardless of if it's fake or if it's real, they're using this event to push forward their agenda. And what you just heard was Donald Trump pretty much saying that we had to fix this old system that was broken and bring in a new one, in so many words. So basically, this event here can catapult in 2020, the year of prophecy, the new world order, getting rid of the old world order. And that's pretty much what you're saying, that system is broken, so they had to bring in a new one. This is... and that's what took over Jerusalem back then was, the Roman armies that came and besieged it pursuant to prophecy, which we're going to get some of them precepts in prophecy. Now, as we speak right now, they're deploying the National Guard throughout America. There's all type of stuff going on around the world, but we're focusing on America because America is Babylon the Great in prophecy, and that is the name of America biblically. And what's happening is they're using the National Guard to deploy them all throughout the United States before they make this move, to be able to keep order when looters and rioters start losing their mind, when they can't move about free, they can't get what they want, they can't go to their favorite restaurants anymore, they can't get their favorite liquor anymore, total lockdown. So I'm going to play a little bit of this. Hopefully they don't give me a strike. This is from PBS NewsHour, Secretary of Defense. And it says Defense Secretary Mark Esper on mobilizing the U.S. military to fight COVID-19. And pretty much what they're doing is systematically shutting down everything and using the military to keep order, just like they did in 70 AD. That's pretty much why the military was sent there, because you had Jake that was turning up. They were revolting, and they sent the Roman military there to shut them down, and to quell the situation and, bring the situation to normal again. And this is what's being done here. So let's play a little bit of this.
And now we turn to the U.S. military and defense community's role in the fight against COVID-19. Late this afternoon, I spoke with Secretary of Defense Mark Esper, who was at the Pentagon. Secretary Mark Esper, thank you very much for joining us. Let's start with COVID-19. We are told the military gearing up in a big way, sending hospital ship, one to each coast, providing hospital beds on land, providing masks and other material. It's a lot. Is it going to be enough?
I think so, Judy. We're putting all of our efforts into this. As you noted, we're providing to the states manpower. We're providing medical equipment and supplies. We are going to dispatch our hospital ships, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. We are contributing to the effort through our military research labs, where we are working mightily on both a vaccine and therapeutics. So we're doing everything we can to help with this effort and to help protect the American people.
Mr. Secretary, on the military ships, our understanding is that they would be used to handle the overflow of seriously ill patients from hospitals, so that on-land hospitals would work with the COVID-19 patients. Is that right?
Slightly right. So the purpose of these ships, of course, are for wartime use. So they are geared to handle trauma patients. So think of people with head injuries, lacerations, broken bones, those types of things. Based on how the ships are configured, they're not built to handle patients with infectious disease. So what we can do is we can pull a ship into a harbor, we can dock, and we can help either pick up trauma patients from a local hospital, thus freeing up a bed space for patients with COVID-19, or we could help with the overflow of trauma patients in recovery who would come out of the hospital. Again, once again, freeing up bed space for localities to put infected patients into those rooms.
Reserve forces, Mr. Secretary, you've said you've tried to avoid calling them up to the extent it would hurt any vital role they're playing in their communities. So how are you thinking about that in terms of using active duty forces versus the reserves and making that tough decision about whether to pull them out?
Well, it's first important to note that 29 of the states now have activated their National Guard. The National Guard is a very capable force. I served in the National Guard for many years, so I know what they can do. And what I've said with regard to the reservists is this. As we look at activating, whether it's the hospital ships or our field deployable hospitals, one of the challenges we face is that many of the medical professionals that would staff those hospitals could come from the reserves. So we've got to be very conscious as we do this to make sure we're not pulling required medical personnel, professionals out of a civilian role that's needed and putting them into a military role and deploying them somewhere else.
And
so pretty much you see that they're mobilizing the military all throughout the United States. You know, on the East Coast, the West Coast, you know, they're so-called playing it on the, you know, on the helping, you know, to free up beds and, you know, stuff of that nature for COVID. But pretty much all it is just a way for them to be on the ready and prepared in place in case anything really breaks out. This is another article another brother sent me. A couple of brothers sent it to me. New York City mayor says Trump should call for military action on coronavirus. You know, and, you know, this is pretty much what's happening. They're using the military, bringing them in, putting them in place just in case. But they know that shit is going to jump off, you know, because this is what they plan. Because they want, at the end of the day, ordo ab chaos. Because in order for them to bring in order, there has to be chaos first. So I have here the Romans destroyed the temple at Jerusalem, 70 AD, and I put this in the description box if brothers want to read it. I'm going to read some of it. I don't know if I'm going to read the whole thing. It's not really long. I'm going to read some of it, hit some precepts, and close out the lesson. Because pretty much what we're seeing is slowly but surely the military of America, the American military, is pretty much sieging the American populace, the American people, you know, which the main threat really are the Israelites. That's the main threat. And the other threat would be those militias and, you know, those Edomites that have been hunkered down and ready to go to war with the government in case they try to infringe upon their rights. But this is why they're declaring national emergencies, because in a national emergency, the Constitution and Bill of Rights, all that stuff goes out the window, and it goes into, that all takes a back seat. So it says, in the year 66 AD, the Jews of Judea rebelled against the Roman masters. In response, the Emperor Nero dispatched an army under the generalship of Vespasian to restore order. By the year 68, resistance in the northern part of the province had been eradicated, and the Romans turned their full attention to the subjugation of Jerusalem. Why? Because this was prophecy. It says that same year, the Emperor Nero died by his own hand, creating a power vacuum in Rome. In the resultant chaos, Vespasian was declared emperor and returned to the imperial city. It fell to his son, Titus, to lead the remaining army in the assault on Jerusalem. And pretty much what they don't tell you in here is that you had a Jake who was an Israelite that was an experienced general, Tiberius Julius Alexander, who actually was the one that went up in there and put a halt to the rebellion, because Titus was very inexperienced. He was young, very inexperienced, and he didn't have a clue of what the hell to do. It was a Jake, a so-called Negro by the name of Tiberius Julius Alexander, TBJ, Tiberius Julius Alexander, TJA, Tiberius Julius Alexander, that went up in there and settled this whole thing. And from this, when they actually got up in there and put the rebellion down, the artifacts and gold and money that they took from the treasury of the temple, they used to finance and build that finish building that Colosseum. Okay, and you have what they call the Ark of Titus, and they show you pictures of the menorah, and that was the conquest of Esau in the Roman Empire of Jerusalem. And this was prophesied to happen. And we're going to read some of that. So the Roman legions surrounded the city and began to slowly squeeze the life out of the Jewish stronghold. And this is what you're seeing going on right now in America. They're sending in the National Guard. But prior to that, they were saying, well, self-quarantine and maintain 6 feet away from each other. In the restaurants, no more than 500 people can gather. No more than 250 people can gather. No more than 50 people. No more than 10. You can't eat in anymore at the restaurants. But you could take out. And eventually, what they're doing is they're squeezing and strangling the life out of the everyday so-called American life. And this is what's happening. So they're besieging America. It says, by the year 70, the attackers had breached Jerusalem's outer walls and began a systematic ransacking of the city. And that's what's about to go down here in America. A systematic ransacking of America. The assault culminated in the burning and destruction of the temple that served as the center of Judaism. In victory, the Romans slaughtered thousands. Of those spared from death, thousands more were enslaved and sent to toil in the mines of Egypt. Others were dispersed to arenas throughout the empire to be butchered for the amusement of the public. The temple's sacred relics were taken to Rome, where they were displayed in celebration of the victory. So pretty much those that comply, they have use for it, they will assimilate them into the New World Order. Those that resist will be put to death. They could have something similar to what went on back then, because they would take some of the followers of the Lord, Yahushai, and put them in these arenas, gladiatorial arenas, and have them fight or actually be mauled by gladiators or by animals. So this is the same thing done over again. It says the rebellion sputtered on for another 3 years and was finally extinguished in 73 AD with the fall of the various pockets of resistance, including the stronghold at Masada. And you could do the research on that, on Masada, on your own. It says the Jews let out a shout of dismay that matched the tragedy, because that's when they were burning down the temple. Our only first-hand account of the Roman assault on the temple comes from the Jewish historian Josephus Flavius. Josephus was a former leader of the Jewish revolt, who had surrendered to the Romans and had won favor from Vespasian. In gratitude, Josephus took on Vespasian's family named Flavius as his own. We joined his account as the Romans fight their way into the inner sanctum of the temple. And this was the final straw when they burnt the inner sanctum, or the Holy of Holies, the temple. All right. It says the rebels shortly after attacked the Romans again, and a clash followed between the guards of the sanctuary and the troops who were putting out the fire inside the inner court. The latter routed the Jews and followed in hot pursuit right up to the temple itself. Then one of the soldiers, without awaiting any orders and with no dread of so momentous a deed, but urged on by some supernatural force, snatched a blazing piece of wood and, climbing on another soldier's back, hurled the flaming brand through a low golden window that gave access on the north side to the rooms that surrounded the sanctuary. So pretty much, you notice it said that it's like he was almost possessed by a supernatural force and guided to do this. And that's exactly what it was, because it was the Most High putting the spirit on this individual to do that, because this was the time that Jerusalem was to be totally taken down. Now, let's go real quick and we'll come back to that. Matthew 24:1. It says, and Yahushua went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple, because they were magnificent structures, you know, and these structures that were set up were about to be destroyed. And Yahushua said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And that was talking about the temple in Jerusalem. It was about to be destroyed. Now let's jump down to the 15th verse. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation. So what is the abomination of desolation? The Romans. They were the abomination that make desolate. They're the abomination that came into the temple and made it desolate. And from that point on, there has not been a temple. That's why today the temple is what? Is us, the Israelites. We are those lively stones now. We are the third temple being built right now. You know, Lord's will, we are part of the elect. It says, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. So when you see these things happening, you know that the time that the Lord said that Jerusalem was going to be destroyed was being fulfilled. And when you see these things, it says, then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountain. Let him which is in the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Why? Because there was a lot of tribulation going on back then for Jake. And now what we're witnessing the same thing all over again, being done the same way in a different time period, with the same people being called by a different name. They're called Americans today. Back then they were called Romans. And this is why they're deploying the National Guard. So this could be that event that just brings in the end. And we hope for that. You know? So now let's go from there to the book of Luke chapter 19 and verse, just bear with me 1 second, 41. And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it. Why did he weep over it? Because back around this time, which was around 33 AD or so, in that time frame, he actually saw the destruction of Jerusalem. He saw the Roman armies coming, besieging the city. He saw the men, the women, the children being killed, put to death. He saw the temple being burnt down. And that's why he wept over it. It says, saying, if thou hadst known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes, just like they are hid from the eyes of Jake out here. The things that belong to their peace. Because the same exact thing is going to happen. It's not going to happen in the same fashion, but we're seeing it play out just like it did back then. That's why the name of the lesson is 70 AD all over again. This time there's no walls. This time there's no sanctuary or temple. This time the wall and the temple and the sanctuary are the people. And they're being besieged. It says, for the day shall come upon thee that thine enemy shall cast a trench about thee and compass thee round about and keep thee in on every side. And we seeing systematically Trump and these different leaders of America strategically placing the National Guard in these different places. All right, let's see. Upon the enemy shall cast a trench. Let's look at what this word trench. Karax, which is what? Which is a palisade, a stake. So they're going to cut you off. You know? Just like this is the root word for the injection or the needle for the mark of the beast. For the microchip. It says a palisade or rampart, pales between which earth, stone, trees, and timbers are heaped and packed together. And this is how they would siege a place. And when they besieged Masada, they had to actually build a tower to get up there because it was on a mountainside. So they had to cut down trees and lay down stones and boulders and bring the Roman military all the way up to the walls of Masada. And this is what they were doing to Jerusalem at the time. Trench about thee and compass thee round about and keep thee in on every side. So this is what's happening right now. The National Guard is starting to mobilize into all of these different cities, the major cities first, so that when they finally implement the total lockdown, the people that loot and riot, they could send the National Guard is already there, so they can keep order and get busy. All right, it says, and shall lay thee even with the ground, and that's happened back then. It's going to happen again today. And thy children within thee. Because at this time when Yahushua spoke about this and told him about this, these people, some of them were around his age. They were like in their 30s. So fast forward it to about another 35 years into the future or so, 35, 36, 34, depending on the time frame, these people were like in their 60s and 70s. And their children were probably in their 30s and 40s. And then they had children, and there were children, that babies that they had. It says, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, that because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation. That's why he told them in Matthew 24 that when you see Jerusalem actually he said, when you see the abomination of desolation, flee into the wilderness. And we're going to read in the 21st chapter. Let's go to that one. 21 and 20. And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. And this is what we're seeing right now. We're witnessing Esau mounting an assault on the people, mainly upon Jacob, because we know that the main people that are the main threat to Esau and the New World Order is the nation of Israel, because we have their birthright, which belonged to us anyway. He was just holding on to it for a while. Then let them which be in. So when you see these armies, right, compassing Jerusalem, surrounding, and that's what's happening. They're putting ships on the west coast. They're putting ships on the east coast, of National Guard. They're putting, they're sending all different types of military vehicles throughout these major cities. They're deploying National Guard to all these different major cities and other surrounding cities, because they plan on going on total lockdown. And at first people are going to revolt because they're not used to that. They're used to getting up in the morning. If they're not working that day, they go about their business, go to the bar, go to the restaurant, go to watch a game, go to the park, go fishing, go hiking, whatever the case is, go to the gym, which they can't do anymore. Then they get hungry, they go buy stuff, they might buy groceries for the week or for a couple of days. But now they're starting to shut all that down. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance. What days of vengeance is speaking about? when the Lord said that the Roman army, which he called the abomination of desolation, was going to come in and ransack Jerusalem and destroy it. And this is what we see happening right now. We see the abomination that maketh desolate being set up throughout all of America through the military, the National Guard. And we were listening to some of this, how they were talking about it. You know? So it says, for these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled, because this is what has to go down. Everything has to be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they're not gonna. We read in 2nd Ezra, the 16th chapter. Let's go there real quick. And the 68th verse. And we read this all the time because these are the times we're in. It says, for behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you, and they shall take away certain of you, and feed you, being idle with things offered unto idols, and they that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach and trodden underfoot. Is that not what we're reading about here? Even though this is talking about 70 AD, you know, there's going to be something similar happening in this time. It says, for there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. They shall be like madmen, sparing none. They're not going to give a damn if you're old, young, a baby, a girl, a boy, a fine woman, whatever. They're not going to care. But still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. So going back to Luke, it says, but woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And this happened back then in 70 AD. But in this time right now, they plan on those that don't play ball, killing them. Those that they can re-educate them and set them up for this new world that Trump spoke about. That they got rid of the old broken system and are bringing in the new system because the old system was broken and no good. We had to make room for the new system. He's talking about the new world order. And the brother, just sent me that. All right. So now, before we read anything else, let me get this one precept. But we're gonna go back to that. Back to the article. All right, let's go back to this article here. Where is it? Right here. It says, as the flame shot up, the Jews let out a shout of dismay that matched the tragedy and flocked to the rescue. And people there's gonna be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Ultimately, when the missiles come and they see the chariots raining down lasers, but also from all the things that are going to come upon the earth. Luke 21, which we're in, with no thought of sparing their lives or husbanding their strength, for the sacred structure that they have constantly guarded with such devotion was vanishing before their very eyes. And in this time, they're gonna get it, man. The time of Jacob's trouble. No exhortation or threat could now restrain the impetuosity of the legions, which is what? The military, the Roman militaries. For passion was in supreme command. Crowded together around the entrances, many were trampled down by their companions, others stumbling on the smoldering and smoke-filled ruins of the porticos, died as miserably as the defeated. As they drew closer to the temple, they pretended not even to hear Caesar's order, but urged the men in front to throw in more firebrands. The rebels were powerless to help carnage and flight spread throughout. Most of the slain were peaceful citizens. See? Most of the slain were peaceful citizens, weak and unarmed. A lot of these American people, Jake, you have Jakes out there that got, ammunition and guns and all that, but you have a lot that don't. And they were butchered where they were caught. The heap of corpses mounted higher and higher about the altar. A stream of blood flowed down the temple's steps on the bodies of those slain. At the top slipped to the bottom. And you better believe that if you don't comply with these, if you caught outside when you're not supposed to be out there, and you don't comply with the National Guard, you better believe if you're a threat, they're gonna put you down. And I'm not talking about tackling you and wrestling you and strapping you up and putting you in prison. I'm talking about cutting you down, shooting you, and taking you out, taking you off the planet. And this is why the Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai has to step in, and He will step in to help us, because we have no defense against this. Psalms 124:7. Our soul is escaped as a bird out of the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken, and we are escaped. See? So we're going to be in the midst of it, but the Lord is going to make something happen to where we're going to be taken care of and freed up. Our help is in the name of the Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai, which Jacob, they don't know the name of the Lord. Neither do they care. They make mockery of it. It says, who made heaven and earth. Let's get one more. Isaiah 59:19. It says, so shall they fear the name of the Lord from the west, and His glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai shall lift up a standard against him. And this is what we're waiting for. So they're coming. They're getting in place. California is already on lockdown. No one can move in California unless you have some kind of medical emergency or have to go to the doctor, or some workers that are needed, to move about to get things going. Other than that, you ain't going nowhere. All right, so now let's go back. It says, when Caesar failed to restrain the fury of his frenzied soldiers, the fire could not be checked. He entered the building with his generals and looked at the holy place of the sanctuary and all its furnishings, which exceeded by far the accounts current in foreign lands and fully justified their splendid repute in our own. So they're trying to make it seem like they were trying to stop the fire and all that, that they didn't really want to burn up, which is bullshit. Because if that was the case, why would you make an ark, remembering your conquest? And in the ark, you put the menorah, and the treasury of the temple that you took. And then you not only did you take it, you used that that gold and money and all that to build your Colosseum. I'm just trying to jump down to the point, man, to put out fire, respect, the state utterly under control. Spurred, everything around them was made of gold. Most of them were spurred on, moreover, by the expectation of loot. See, convinced that the interior was full of money, and dazzled by observing that everything around them was made of gold. But they were forestalled by one of those who had entered into the building, and who, when Caesar dashed out to restrain the troops, pushed a firebrand, in the darkness into the hinges of the gate. Then, when the flames suddenly shot up from the interior, Caesar and his generals withdrew, and no one was left to prevent those outside from kindling the blaze. This in defiance of Caesar's wishes, the temple was set on fire, because this was the Lord. He wanted this to happen. Yahweh Shai said that there shall not be one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. While the temple was ablaze, the attackers plundered it, and countless people who were caught by them were slaughtered. There was no pity for age, and no regard was accorded rank, children, and old men. Laymen and priests alike were butchered. Every class was pursued and crushed in the grip of war, whether they cried out for mercy or offered resistance. Now let's go to Deuteronomy 28:49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, because they were speaking the Latin and Greek languages. A nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And these are historical accounts. This is in the history, that they didn't have any mercy, that they were against even the priest. They butchered them. It says, And this fulfilled the prophecy in Deuteronomy 28. And he shall eat in these particular verses. And they shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, because they plundered everything. Which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil. And this is why Yahushua told those that understood this prophecy, when you see these things happening, don't try to come and get your stuff. Bounce. Get the hell out of here. Because this was going to be given to these soldiers, the Roman soldiers. Or the increase of thy kind, or the flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down. And that happened. Wherein thou trustest throughout all thy land, and he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy power hath given thee. You see? And it goes on to say more, deals with the siege and all that. And there was different sieges, but this was one of the main sieges that destroyed the main venerated building of ours, the temple. This is when it was totally taken down. And Jake, from that point on, fled and never been back to Jerusalem since. You know, until the Lord bring us back. Now let's read a little more of this. It says, through the roar of flames extremely far and wide, the groans of the falling victims were heard. Such was the height of the hail and the magnitude of the blazing pile that the entire city seemed to be ablaze. And the noise, nothing more deafening and frightening could be imagined. So you could imagine blood-curdling yells. And this is why this time, it says it's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's going to be far worse than this. There were the war cries of the Roman legions as they swept onwards in mass. So they didn't stop. The yells of the rebels encircled by fire and sword, the panic of the people who cut off above fled into the arms of the enemy, and their shrieks as they met their fate. And this is why the Lord said, when your fear cometh as let's read that again. We read that earlier, but let's read that again. Proverbs 1. Let me see. I'm not sure what. Right. Oh, wow. Went right to it. Proverbs 1:27. When your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall you call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. And the Lord said he was going to laugh at your calamities. And this is the same thing that's going to go on in this time, but it's going to be far worse. The cries on the hill blended with those of the multitude in the city below, and now many people who were exhausted and tongue-tied as a result of hunger, when they beheld the temple on fire. Because remember, one of the things said that they were going to be in the law, and the curse in Deuteronomy said that they're going to turn to cannibalism because of hunger. When they beheld the temple on fire, found strength once more to lament and wail, Perea and the surrounding hills added their echoes to the deafening din. But more horrifying than the din were the sufferings. You know, so pretty much, this what's happening right now in America is like a repeat of 70 AD all over again. You see the National Guard, they're deploying the National Guard all throughout America. And it's to keep the people in check. Why were the Roman soldiers sent, the legion sent to Jerusalem? Because there was a big revolt and they had to shut it down. But back then they had to siege it because they had walls and gates. See, now they don't have walls or gates. So it's going to get bad out here, man. So let's pray to Yahweh Shem Yahshua that this be it. That just this brings the very end of this devil. Because they can use this crisis to do a lot with it. And this could definitely could bring in the fulfillment of the mark of the beast, which is the microchip. And then now they're starting those forced vaccines, so on and so forth. So it's gonna get real. It's real, but it's gonna get more real. So with that, I pray that you brothers have been edified. To the next time I say shalom. Imagine, so you could imagine blood-curdling yells. And this is why this time, it says it's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's going to be far worse than this. There were the war cries of the Roman legions as they swept onwards in mass. So they didn't stop. The yells of the rebels encircled by fire and sword, the panic of the people who cut off above fled into the arms of the enemy.